When Castlevania Lords of Shadow came out in 2010, it wasn't the first good 3D Castlevania game, but it was the very first one that truly understood what it was to be Castlevania. It abandoned many of the series' conventions and told a markedly different tale, yet it looked and felt like Castlevania. That's why it was so exciting that it would be followed up with a proper sequel, and why it's so confusing that the long-awaited Lords of Shadow 2 feels like a step backwards. Lords of Shadow 2 has many nods to the greats of the franchise. Lines from Symphony of the Night are spoken mere minutes into the campaign, but it's also very much its own take. That was a good thing with the original, which felt inspired by Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. But in Lords of Shadow 2, Mercury Steam may have walked too far away from what the fans of the series expect, especially when it comes to its setting. Largely mired in the present day, a setting Castlevania fans aren't unaccustomed to but still very much wary of. Lords of Shadow 2 feels like a bonkers Resident Evil game. Its convoluted story revolves around a major corporation instead of something suitably medieval. Main character Dracula, formerly Gabriel Belmont, can go into the past to more familiar haunts, but walking around a modern-day city for much of the game was disappointing. Either way, the plot is uninteresting, largely full of characters and arcs that never fully grasped me and made me care. Enemy designs are uninspired, especially in the present-day setting. Why is Dracula fighting missile-launching mechs, and why do those alien-looking creatures have machine guns? At least Lords of Shadow 2 is a beautiful game. I was especially enamored by the many background vistas, gothic architecture, and Dracula himself. And its score, while fairly unique in comparison to the series' established sonic aesthetic, is beautiful. The larger evolution may have been inspired by the likes of Batman Arkham City, if not the many Metroid-style Castlevania games that preceded it. It's open world and encourages exploration and backtracking, but it's certainly prettier than its inspiration. Like so many of today's third-person action adventures, Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 iterates on the arcadey stylings of the God of War series. Combat consists of a cacophony of fierce and light attacks, made more dynamic by a litany of special moves that are unlocked by spending hard-earned experience points. Indeed, Lords of Shadow 2 provides a ton of options to keep combat fresh, giving it a feeling of depth and uniqueness. Regrettably, not all is well when it comes to gameplay in Lords of Shadow 2. Perhaps the most egregious addition is in the form of stealth sections that are incredibly annoying, unnecessary, and which break up the rhythm and cadence of the experience. These parts are literally never fun, incessantly obnoxious, and entirely ill-conceived, especially for such an action-packed adventure. It's a shame because while Lords of Shadow 2's plot and characters have little to add, combat is its shining star, and every time you run into a stealth section, that shining star's light is diminished, as the game arbitrarily removes your ability to fight when it deems it convenient. If you can get past Lords of Shadow 2's shortcomings, you'll find plenty to do as you play. Mercury Steam has jam-packed its open world with a ton to find, including myriad upgrades, hidden documents, and much, much more. Indeed, many of these collectibles expand upon Lords of Shadow's lore, and it was clear a lot of love was put into giving every character, monster, and location a unique story. Lords of Shadow 2 is a surprisingly long game to boot. You're unlikely to beat the campaign in under 15 hours unless you're rushing through, and you'll spend closer to 20 if you want to do and see everything. Castlevania Lords of Shadow 2 disappointed me. It seems to have taken far too many cues from its contemporaries, muddling the many successes of the original Lords of Shadow. While beautiful and well-scored and toting enjoyable combat, Lords of Shadow 2 is bogged down by some poor design decisions and subpar characters and plot points. Fans of the original, or of Castlevania generally, may want to give Lords of Shadow 2 a go to see Mercury Steam's trilogy through. But go in knowing that it's not nearly as good as the excellent Lords of Shadow, and that's truly a shame.